All right, cool. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to a little recap video. Today I'm going to try and quickly run through some of the highlights of yesterday's week 2 of the new Pro Chess League. I still haven't seen all the games from yesterday, even though I'm one of the official commentators for the Pacific Division. So there's so much going on, it's hard to keep track of all of it. Some of my highlights I got from like seeing other people mention them, like on Twitter or wherever, and some of them come from chess.com. So if I go to chess.com, I think they've got a poll for like best move of the day. Here they are. So if you go to chess.com on Twitter, they have a poll for what's the best move of the day and what's the best game of the day. See these two polls? So I grabbed all of those moments as well. Some of them I hadn't seen to go over those today as well. So we'll see which ones. Yeah. So my point is, you can go and vote if you have an opinion once you've seen these. That's the only reason why I was showing you this. Looks like 2 days to cast your vote and have an impact on it. That stuff actually also matters to the players, because if I go here for a second, you can see that every week there are prizes for best game and best move. So I'm sure the players would appreciate you casting wise, objective votes on their behalf, so that the most deserving player can win a prize. So okay, here let's just jump into it. First we've got this game from Grandmaster Angel Arribas. So we'll pop it over here into live, and can I not see it? Hang on. Hang on. All right, with the file cut off, no problem. I got this. Or not. Analysis board started. All right, PGN. All right. I don't know how much time I want to put into putting everybody's names in, but this is Angel Arribas Lopez, and black is, I forget, Kambrath. Save. All right. So close Sicilian. With the knight on h3, it allows it to still go aggressively to the king side, but also you can roll your f-pawn, which he then starts doing very, very soon. e5. Here there's probably some long calculation about bishop takes g2, but pawn takes knight and bishop takes h3. I don't know. I would think it would work out for black, and I would think that black should do it, but I haven't checked it, so I could be totally wrong. Anyway, he just moves his knight here, and then white continues queen g4. The reason it would be desirable to trade on g2 is I feel like this pin, this is like a favorable tension for white. The black has to keep this stuff defended. Anyway, white comes for the king side and plays f5. Is this a candidate for best move or best game? It might be both. Let's just see. Angel Arribas is only in the running for best move, not for best game. Okay, anyway, it's a good game overall as well. So he plays f5, e takes f5, rook f5. Let's hurry to the move. D takes e5, g6. Yeah, no, if bishop here, then probably white can just take on d5 and win. With this kind of idea. So black sacks in exchange. White takes it, And now, of course, you know, you could play rook 8f1 or bring this rook back or something. White has a good game. But here Angel played quite a sweet move. He plays rook takes f7. And this is threatening rook takes b7, among other things. Black captures it. He plays knight g5 check. And here there's no great move for the king. So if king e7, there's mate in 1. If king g7, there's knight e6 taking the queen. If king g8, there's queen e6. And now either queen f7 coming in, or if king h8, knight f7. This is also hanging now. So yeah, and if king f6, then probably rook f1 check. And you've just, the last thing you want to do, even worse than allowing mate in 1, is allowing white to bring the rook into f1 and then mate you a couple moves later with his rook also in the game. So he moves the king away, and now he trades on d5, and this is really like the sweet part about this. You know, somehow queen e6 is apparently not completely instantly winning, although it does win back a piece. But I really like that his follow-up here. I like the second move of his follow-up, this knight e6. You know, if he saw this when he played rook f7, this is a pretty sweet move here, this knight e6. Hey, hello, Leah Cat, welcome. And once this knight e6 comes, he's threatening to take the queen. If bishop takes, queen takes, check, and next move he gets this rook for free, which would leave him pretty easily winning. So then the queen moved, and then he can play bishop takes d5, and there's no this because of this. And now this position here is like easier to win than a position up an exchange like he had before, because these pieces here in these weak light squares of blacks guarantee an unstoppable attack. It did not take him long to finish the game off. He develops the last piece, threatening rook f8. Anchors these pieces, since black's now able to take on d5 with the queen because of knight c7 being covered. So he anchors this, but now these are anchored for good. And now all he needs to do is attack this bishop and break through somewhere here. First he defends his knight more, then queen h4. Bishop moves, and now he's threatening checkmate. Black stops it like this, and after this move, he gets checkmated anyway. King here. There's both queen h7 and knight c5 check, taking the queen. So there you have it. I mean, this is a game where he definitely had the advantage either way, but still a sweet move, especially if you like this follow-up knight e6 like I do. Now, next, we have... I'm going to show you one that did not impress me as much. Actually, we can just go over this one right here, except that an important file is cut off. Okay, I'll paste it in here. Okay, so now black is Yatzenko. And Jumbayev. All right. Well, this is a pretty cool hedgehog so far. Type position from black, right? And now he plays this pawn sack to break up white's center. Now black has the nice center. But all the white pieces seem to be in pretty good position to put pressure on it, actually. So he plays an exchange sack to complicate matters, weakening white's king. Bishop f1 covers any g2 mates, or bishop takes h3, so he just keeps his bishop, which is the superior bishop at the moment, controlling the longer diagonal. But here, they said possible move of the week, a5. Now the point of a5 was revealed when white unsuspectingly took it, happy to turn these into two connected pass pawns and maybe trade this bishop for this one. But black, Yatzenko was not planning to recapture on a6. He just played queen a7, and just like that, it's lights out. White's king is actually cut off on this diagonal, and oddly, gets checkmated with no black piece past the third rank, and this knight not even participating. So black just checkmated white with 2 pieces on the second row against a king on g1, surrounded by every single white piece is like developed. So it is an utterly unusual position. I mean, it's just so unusual that it's exactly the kind of thing that you can easily blunder. But I feel like a5 is basically just a cheapo threat, and that most moves for white here would have stopped this checkmate. So personally, to me, this wouldn't be like the move of the week, even though it is hilarious. You know, if it were unusual position of the week or something like that, sure, got my vote. But move of the week, not that impressed personally. No offense intended towards anyone. Obviously, it was still cool, still a highlight moment. Let's grab another one. So this one here, I'm gonna grab the moves. Here, PGN, paste, okay. I think we've got MVL as white against Fontaine. This was the match of the week, to my mind. And I think, I haven't reviewed this extensively, and certainly not with a computer, but I think that Fontaine was winning this game against MVL in beautiful and graphic style here. He's sacrificed a piece and he's on the attack. Here he could, here I guess he doesn't play queen g1 because when the king comes up, his queen is attacked, and there's a checkmate threat on h7, which is white's counter threat here. That's the only thing keeping black from, you know, taking here and here and here and just kind of Pac-Manning the white pieces. So rook e4 to cut off the checkmate threat. Now the knight escapes from there, and now he went here and grabbed this rook. Commentators were expecting a black win here. I think I remember Lawrence Trent saying there appeared to be nothing wrong with bishop takes knight, recovering the piece, and obviously continuing a good position for black, as white's completely all over the place. He also thought that f takes e5 might be totally fine, just continuing to not care about stuff, and go after f2 if the knight moves. But Fontaine grabbed this rook over here, and then MVL struck from a position this should be like lost in like 1/10 of a second here. But somehow rook h7 check, king h7, and queen h3, and Vachier-Lagrave pounced on this perpetual check. I mean, another like incredible thing about this is he'd planned this. Like, he played this in 0 seconds. Just instantaneous, this whole thing. So like, I mean, one thing when you're in a bad position, it's hard to keep track of all the different bad things that can happen to you, and like figure out like what's my best chance against each of these things and how am I going to go for it, right? But he had like clearly considered, you know, all these options: black taking his rook, black taking his knight, black taking e5, and probably had something instantaneous to play against any of these moves to really go for his best practical chances. So rook h7 here, and his king was unable to get away. So, you know, this was like quite a half point to save in a game where where Maxime was just getting wrecked. And it's a cool opportunity to catch. That said, to me, it's not super deep, but it's pretty awesome. I don't know. It's not going to be my #1 vote, but I think it's a legitimate one. So anyway, this game ended in a draw. And on to another one. Before I show you the 4th candidate for best move, I'm going to show you, I'm sort of saving my favorite highlights for later on in this program, so I can give them a couple extra minutes. Before I do that, let's grab this game here. This one here is actually like a miss instead of something that actually happened, but something that I thought was pretty awesome. This was a potentially deciding game in the match between the Montclair Sopranos and the New Jersey Knockouts. A match which I didn't watch, but which must have been really thrilling because it was decided by a single point, I think. Here we've got Robert Hess with black playing against Alexander Fishbein with white. Hess eventually wins this game, and I think his team, the Sopranos, win by 1 point ahead of Fishbein's knockouts. So this must have been an extremely interesting, intense match. At this point, Hess looks to be in a good position to me. Goes for the c4 pawn, which seems like the wrong side of the board to be looking at, but who knows? It's super complicated. Here, Fishbein plays the first, like, sweet, fantastic move. Rook takes g4. I don't even know, like, how sound it is if Hess takes it all. Let's see, like here, here, here. Not clear that this would work, is it? I glanced at this, but I didn't immediately see the answer, and also black could take this way first, and then here, here. And again, it's kind of complicated. The black queen is covering f1, so you don't have queen h7, king here, rook f1 to grab this rook. So, you know, you could play knight h5 and the game could continue kind of crazily. I don't know. Not sure whether or not it was sound, but he plays here, and to be honest, it doesn't feel sound, right? But maybe there's something awesome to it. Hess takes the knight instead, leaving his queen attacked and the rook attacked. This move would not have worked because of rook takes g6. Rook takes f2, rook here, which is sweet. But he takes this way. And now in this position, I think Fishbein could have perhaps won the match for his team with rook to g5. This is like the sweet move that wasn't. His queen's attacked by two rooks on this open file, but just go after the black king. Here I'm feeling like the queen being on the wrong side of the board. If rook here, it's checkmate. That's the threat, right? And we can quickly tell that black doesn't really have any defense, because how can they cover h5? Well, there's like rook h6, in which case queen f8 is convincing, or queen f7 defending it, in which case white gets to show off with queen f6. And boom, boom, boom. Hey, Bill Kell, welcome to my little highlight reel here. So I mean, we can quickly determine that this is just, you know, kind of like a forced mate situation here for black. The best they could do would be to sack the queen, and still can't take white's queen because of this, right? So then here and something like this, and eventually losing in like 3 more moves. Not very long. Okay, so that is the highlight that wasn't, but shows you how close some of the close matches can be. All right, so covered that, covered that, covered that. All right, now it's time to get into my 3 or 4 favorite games. So check this out, friends. Check this out. This game here was probably the most exciting game in the history of chess esports, potentially. You know, if chess esports is kind of a new thing. So, so here we've got Flava. His name is his full name is like Flavien or something like this, I think. But Flavio Perez, but his username is Flav. And the situation here was just completely insane. Okay, so let me just give you like the setup. It's round 4 of Caen versus Marseille, the French battle. Flavio Perez, yeah, thank you. Caen versus Marseille, the French showdown. The Marseille squad looking to be one of the best teams in the world, with Maxime Vachier-Lagrave on board 1 and Etienne Bacrot on board 2. It seems like they would be the French team. And you're like, why is Caen even trying? There's already Marseille. What are you guys going to do? No, I'm just kidding. You should always try, even if you're the underdog. But it really looked like Marseille should be one of the favorites in the whole league. They're taking on Caen for, you know, who's got the French bragging rights. And in round 4 is right now when the board 1 plays against the board 4 for each team, and board 2 against board 3. So with the match completely tied and 3 games left to play, 2 Caen grandmasters offered draws on boards 2 and 3, or like repeated positions, made quick draws, leaving Flav to play by himself against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, where if he loses, Marseille wins the match. Now, incomprehensible to me that the Caen GMs agreed to these draws, because it seems like they're kind of sacrificing their team to MVL winning. You know, everybody would have expected a Maxime win here as black in the decisive game. Last week he'd been 4-0, but as you saw in his game with Fontaine, you know, he's actually been a little shaky, shown a couple cracks. Still, I can't countenance like betting on Flav against MVL for the Caen players, but they did. And he plays a long and excellent maneuvering game here with Maxime in this closed Sicilian. It's a very interesting position. Very complicated. They play it for a long time. And finally, he builds up his rooks on the G file. This is nice. And we finally get a big mistake from Maxime. He plays G5. And here, knight takes G4. Starts a very strong attack for white. F takes G5 here is like a big mistake, because after knight E5, black defends this pawn and leaves these pieces kind of locked out. And that's probably the kind of thing that Maxime was expecting when he played G5. But white has 2 crushing moves here, I think. One is what Flav played, rook G4. The other would have been to just sack on G5 straight up, right? And then rook G4. Vachier can't take on F4 because of rook H4, right? Winning his queen for a bishop and also mating 1 or 2 moves later. So the sacrifice is immediately going to reap at least 3 pawns. Sorry for highlighting the bishop. It's going to reap at least 3 pawns plus like just an eternal murderous attack against the black king, and hard to get these pieces involved in the defense quickly. This position is like obviously decisive for white, whether or not you're precise. Same kind of goes for what Flav goes for. He plays rook G4 and goes for the murderous attack on the G file. Compared to the variation I would have played, Maxime still has 2 H pawns as cover, so it's not as instantly over, but it still looks super strong. I think also like one of his best winning moves instead of queen G2 would have been rook G6. It threatens yield queen win. It also threatens to recover his piece on this square. And if you try and defend both with the rook here, then my thought would be to play F5 for white. Attacking that rook, strong pointing G6, defending that one, and preparing queen takes H6 as well. And I was basically assuming that white would easily win here. But this is an example of my point about how this is just an overwhelmingly obviously winning position. You don't have to play all the precise moves to eventually win here. He plays queen G2, which is clearly not the most accurate, then goes over and takes H4. That pawn could already have been gone if he'd played like the bishop takes G5 type variation. Then queen H3, looking for a rook H6 sack, but after queen E6 defending it, oops, that was just a completely wasted move. He has to play rook G4 back to avoid the queen trade. Now he's not attacking this. So Vachier's had like 3 free moves to defend himself here. Brings the bishop over, which seems like a great defensive square for the bishop, right, from C5. He's got all this for free. Still winning position for Flava, who could here play the move knight D4, crushing Crushing Vachier because it attacks these, and after this, you get rid of this piece, leaving him more alone than he's ever been. And instead, he goes Queen G3 first, threatening Rook G7. Okay, it's not going away. This has to be defended, and then he plays Knight D4. Totally good as well, right? This poor bishop, the only contribution it makes defensively is being a wasted tempo when the knight comes in and running away. And in comes the knight to F5. And again, you can feel how this is sort of automatically overwhelming, right? You don't have to play all the best moves. Here, Flav should probably play knight takes H6. But no harm, no foul. As long as you don't blunder at the last moment, you will eventually win this position as white. Here, I have no idea what would have been wrong with queen takes F4. That seems brutally decisive on this particular move. But instead, he takes here, sacrificing this rook. And now it's a close call. Now white's barely winning after all these moves. He has to find the last tactic, but now he finds it. Check, only move, and then check, chasing the king off of the defense of the rook. And oh la la, this is the final walk for MVL's king. The rook chases him down along the 7th rank. If bishop b7, queen b7 mate. If the king ever goes back, the queen comes over. Right, same if the king comes back, the queen comes over. Here he resigned because eventually he's forced back in this direction and the queen can come in on this side of the rook. This is like a thing where, you know, your rook's on the wrong side of your queen and you want to get to the other side. But if you have full control of the 7th rank, you can just chase them until you make room for your queen. And he did. So, that was kind of the most thrilling thing ever. I mean, he's just like attacking 2,800 player, one of the top players in the world, one of the top speed chess players in the world, one of the top rapid players in the world. And this guy Flav that nobody knew about, well, I'm sure some of, you know, his teammates on his local team knew about him, and there's people who knew about him. But me, as somebody who's played mostly in the US instead of Europe, I didn't know this guy. He's no GM. Under huge time pressure. I mean, he had like seconds left as he was double checking rook b7. He was thinking here for like 20 of his last 30 seconds, causing like major heart attacks, I'm sure, to all his teammates. Yeah. Sorry about the lighting issue today. Let's move a little bit this way since that light is worse than this one. Okay. All right, so he wins this. He wins this incredible game, and with that, the Khan blockbusters knock out the Marseille Migraines and take the lead. Yeah, so completely awesome, amazing. That is definitely a candidate for Game of the Week, right? Game of the Week, Flavio Perez versus MVL. Okay, really, really good option. But I'm now into the Games of the Week, and there's 3 other options here, all of which I think are fantastic. So I've got at most half an hour. Grab a hold. We are going to try and go through a couple more amazing games really fast. All right. Analysis. Grab the moves. So this game is, it's one of the Ninja Turtles. Is it Donatello? It's borisek. I know it's his real name, but is it Donatello? I'm not sure. And black is neiksans, Artours. I'm not sure if I'm spelling Artour right. Artours? I feel like for somebody so good, I should do him the honor of getting his name right. Neiksans is right. Artours. I think it's right. Whatever. We'll try it. Okay, and if Donatello is actually Michelangelo or Leonardo or something, I apologize. But, all right. Let's have a quick look at this game. So, This queen f3 variation, the idea is to play quickly queen g3, trade queens, and play hg, and open the h-file for pressure in the endgame. And if black doesn't want to trade queens, your queen's going to be amazing here attacking this weak point. And black will lose time moving their queen. That's the reason for this weird early bishop d6 in this variation. And pieces get traded. Now it's really, really important for black to get their pawns onto these squares if possible, because this bishop's counting on it. And you want to leave white with this e4 pawn. So you actually want to open up this d5 square here. So he goes e5 right away. That's typical. Rook c4 is probably an interesting option here for white, but he didn't go for it. Not that his move's necessarily bad. Interesting that he goes for trying to win this pawn in f4 instead of just d6 and developing his bishop, right? But he goes for it, and now white tries to take control of the dark squares. And things get intense here. Queen a5 attacking e2. They're fighting really hard over this e5 f4 pair of pawns. Who's going to get the pawns on the dark squares? All right, I've got confirmation that Jura is in fact Donatello. So he's from the Ninja Turtles team, which is in itself an awesome thing that there's a whole team of grandmasters from Ljubljana, the Dire Wolves. Interesting that they're the Dire Wolves, not the Mutant Ninja Turtles. But anyway, they're the Dire Wolves, and they named themselves not after the Dire Wolves in Game of Thrones, but after the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So their accounts are Donatello, Michelangelo, Leonardo, etc. Yeah, so pressure on e5. Queen's got to get out of the way of this. This is just another brilliant game here by both players fighting so hard for what's important in the position. We've got a Latvian cat in the house. I would also be proud to be Latvian on a day where you've got neiksans playing like this. The Riga Magicians being their team, playing really well. I think this match actually might have been tied 8-8 in the end, and this kind of one of the decisive games. I think this was like the closest match of all of them and was tied 8-8. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Should I check how wrong I am? I'm trying to look it up. Riga Magicians 8-8 Ljubljana. Okay, so indeed, this is from an extremely close match. The Riga Magicians upset the Gnomes last week, and this match ends in an 8-8 tie eventually. So you can imagine the stakes here. So check out this cool move. This was probably part of the idea of this slightly weird-looking Queen C4 move, is hitting neiksans with Queen C7, checkmating his queen in the middle of the board to transfer this towards an endgame Knight C7, an endgame that white would immediately win. But neiksans' plan is just crazy. He must have seen this coming. He just trades off his queen in response for white's minor pieces. Leaves white's remaining pieces, nominally slight material advantage for white, but just completely discoordinated pieces. And now just goes to open up the position. And black doesn't have any immediate direct threat here, but what you'll see is that black has a rook, a knight, and a pawn against a queen, which is pretty close to material equality. And just the idea of like using his activity with his rooks to go after the white king. Well, this rook is not really involved at the moment. So, of course, threat to like, if he wins this pawn, then he's got like an incredible pawn mass. So white trades it, and in comes another piece. Now knight f3 check is threatened, so he's got to stop that. And now bishop f3. This is a sweet move. In terms of move order, like keeping open the possibility of going rook d8 or rook c8, but immediately challenging this piece with the possibility of knight f3 if it gives way, and otherwise, you know, this rook is not easy to cover. So Borisek comes up with quite a attempt here to stay in the game with rook e5, rook g5 with the idea of going to e5. I'm trying to get out of the way of this knight fork and counterattack here. Rook c8. The queen can't come to the d file because of rook to d8. See. I mean, I was going to maybe give one or two sample variations just to give you like a small feel of what might be up here if white didn't go for this counterattack. Like, I don't know, maybe like bishop d3 would be one variation, right? And then here, rook to c8. Trying to cut the king off this way. A move like queen to a5 or queen to, yeah, like queen to a5, and now knight d3. And here, the king simply gets caught like out in the open board. I mean, I'm not going to show you guys 500,000 variations on any of these games. But here, like, you can see, like, if pawn takes here, right, and then king here, and now whatever, rook e5 or something. I don't know, maybe there's something better, but taking the queen for free, right? And if king takes, then he can also play, like, bishop e4. And again, the king is basically going to get caught on this d file because black's going to cut him off on both files and capture the c pawn here. And that's just rough. It's just rough for the king caught out here. So just one example of, like, the kind of attack that neiksans can generate here. So rook g5 was played, rook here, and now he bails out with rook e5. And rook c7 loses to rook e8, and rook e5 loses to queen c8. But neiksans saw this coming too, plays the rook check here, and now if the king moves, he can safely take the queen. So the queen trades off here, and they go into this endgame. Okay, so now he's up a pawn, and actually, I mean, he doesn't play perfectly precisely in this next phase, but I feel like this is a game where both players were like up to snuff as far as like just brilliant repartee back and forth. Both of them making like a good decision on a positional queen sack and then counter sack of the queen to stay in the game. I would normally think that this kind of endgame you'd have a very good chance to win here with the f pawn. But maybe he pushes this like a step too soon. Maybe it's better to first play h6 and g5 here. But he plays f3, and borisek, Donatello, comes up with this defense, which is just crazy. He kind of like traps this bishop here. If bishop h1, his plan would be to just come back, right, and perpetual attack the bishop. Okay. This is Ljubljana Direwolves white against Riga Magicians black. So he's trapping this bishop, and his plan is like if you keep whatever trucking along with your passed pawns, he's going to trade and then just catch this pawn. Similarly, if you trade on f1, it's rather difficult to defend this pawn on f3, right? And then so it would just be an instant draw. So this move, bishop f1, is a fantastic defense that he comes up with. And here I think neiksans had to stop for a moment and be like, oh, shoot. I didn't see this bishop f1 defense coming probably. Like, do I have any way to keep the game going? And it turns out he does. But this is, like, fantastic. And I think this is also... Is this a candidate for best move? No, it's not. Only for best game. But this would have been another... This would be another candidate for best move if it were on the list. He plays f2. Attacking the rook. So there's no time for this yet. But seemingly this move is no good because of Donatello's strong response, rook to e2. Just going to play rook f2 check next, right? Sacking the bishop. And if you take, and take. Woo! Everything clean, right? So it looks like he's got everything covered. Rook e2, great. An incredible defense by white. But neiksans had come up with one way to keep the game going. Boom! Rook d3. And yeah, not the square you would expect that he could use, right? Given that the white bishop has been controlling it all along. So the tactical point is if he takes, pinning like this, okay, you can't let the black king keep coming up, so you unpin, force him to take. You've got this pawn covered here, here, here. And black wins the king and pawn ending, right? I assume so because white didn't go for it, and that's what I calculated. So rook d3 check. He can't even take it. His king has to come back. Now, still, what's he supposed to do? Now his bishop's hanging, his pawn's hanging, his rook's hanging. In a certain sense, it's like, well, yeah, that's a lot hanging. But in the famous words of another Riga magician, Mikhail Tal, they can only take them one at a time, right? Didn't he say that? I think he did. I once played a game where I put all 4 of my pieces, my minor pieces, on perez at the same time. Like my opponent forked me, and then like I moved another one where he could take it, and then he couldn't take any of them yet, and then I moved the 4th one where he could take them all. It's like, well, you're quadra forked, but at most you're losing 2 pieces, not 4, right? Because there's no way they can capture all 4 fast enough. Now, of course, I lost that game. But neiksans does not lose this game. He trades this bishop off on f1, indirectly defending the rook, so the king still can't take, right? Rook f2 check. King moves. Probably better to move the king active to e6. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not an endgame specialist. I'm a highlight tactics specialist. And now the bishop's defending the rook, takes, and now the whole point of rook d3 check was to play this move at the end and win a pawn, so that he can keep pressing this rook and pawn endgame. So what I want to show by this, partly, is I want to take a moment to appreciate that the flashiest, most awesome, brilliant tactics can just be in order to make a slight positional improvement, or to like get your king 1 square closer, or to win 1 pawn. And in this case, that's what it is. And here he gets to an endgame, which seems very promising. Good chances for a win. Probably better with his king on e6, as I was mentioning. Just repeating something I saw somebody stronger than me say somewhere. Donatello, you got to praise him. Like, one of the things I like about this game is, like, this is like a two-way brilliancy. You got to praise Donatello just as much as neiksans, because he absorbs blow after blow after blow from this guy, right? Like, Arturus is just on fire this day, right? It's like his mind's on another level. He's seeing every single tactical resource. He's just honed in. And this guy's like hanging in there. Like, he's like, okay, yeah, you surprised me with another brilliant move, but I'm going to quickly identify my best chance and keep going for it. So he hangs in there. He eventually draws this end game. I think, like, once his rook's behind this pawn like this, I don't think he can lose, because basically you can't advance this stuff with just your king. You can always get checked away. I think at this point it was just a draw, so I'm not going to go through the rest of it for you guys. Yeah. Anyway, I think from here is like just a draw. So it shows that, you know, defending the pawn with the rook from c8 was not going to be the winning technique. Better to maybe have the king closer from the beginning. But brilliant game from both players. Worthy candidate for game of the week. Actually, it reminds me of another incredible tactic that I saw today, but I guess I don't have time for it. I got to keep going with the championship games. All right. All right, so that's neiksans. Now I did Perez. I've got 2 games left to look at. Okay. Swiercz jayaram. This is like the only game from my league that's in these highlights, and we've got about 5 minutes for it, guys. Maybe 10. All right, PGNs. All right, back to the beginning here. So the players are swiercz, Polish prodigy / genius, versus jayaram. Where'd it go? Jayaram, I'm trying to give you credit. All right. All right. Versus jayaram, less well-known genius. Probably a genius. I don't even know for sure if he's a genius or if he just had a good day. Did already cover the MBL loss. It'll be in the VOD and the highlight video on YouTube later. All right, so advanced Caro-Kann. This position here, this advanced variation, Swiercz had used in a previous round to destroy Ilya Nizhnik, another 2600 young prodigy from the Ukraine on the same team as jayaram, now at Webster College along with him. This is from a critical match as well. This is from Webster versus St. Louis, the battle of the 2 teams from St. Louis, because Webster is the university in St. Louis. St. Louis has like taken over from New York City, I think, as like the strongest chess playing city in the U.S., thanks to the St. Louis Chess Club. This was a really, really mighty match. 2 of the 3 best teams probably in the Pacific Division, Webster and St. Louis. The best team perhaps being the San Jose Hackers, but they won so cleanly they're not even in my highlight reel today. Sorry. So he'd already won a game against a stronger opponent in this same variation one round before. So Jayaram was kind of like, he was bold. You'll see how bold he is this game. He goes for this line, seemingly problems developing this bishop, this knight on b8. The commentators at the time, were thinking that his position was worse. Bishop e3, where does the queen go? Oh yeah, to b2, of course. He's on an expedition. No rook to b1 because of the bishop. So he grabs this pawn. The game continues. Here, if just rook c6, he has queen e5, right? So it's not so obvious for white how they're going to try and keep their advantage here. Grabs e5, maintains his extra pawn for the moment. And yeah, we can see that white's almost certainly going to win back the pawn on a7. So yeah, white's position still seems very, very comfortable. But now, what Jayaram wants to do is, like, he wants to gain some activity, because when white wins back this pawn, well, he doesn't want to let white win that pawn back for free and then start working with like a passed a pawn. And this bishop is in danger of not being super active, since white's kind of cleared out these squares and would want to march the a pawn. So he's actually he's already starting to lay the groundworks for trying to create some kind of weaknesses in white's position and some activity. So bishop d6, a move which I didn't think was a big deal at the time, but now I feel it, having played through the rest of the game. Getting white to play g3 here, I thought no big deal. Now in comes the bishop. And notice how he's like staying active, just coordinating white's pieces. Rook d1, queen e2. So now he's starting to look over at possibilities of like here and here at some point, right? So white grabs the pawn, and Jayaram makes a threat, queen f3. So queen a5. By the way, at this point, as Yermolinsky was like hilariously pointing out, it's kind of like a who's going to get back rank mated first kind of scenario once bishop e4 gets played, because like white could play a tactic like rook d6. Okay, you can't take back because of checkmate, but then black plays queen e1. So it's like they're both getting checkmated at the same time. So anyway, so white plays queen a5, making another back rank mate threat, and also covering queen e1. So if this rook just moves away, then perhaps white can win with rook d6, and then before you can get in here, he can play queen d8 for style points, back rank mate. Woo! The race to back rank mate. So amazingly, black's defense is to play rook d7 with the rook, and he's defending his back rank with bishop a8, bishop f8. Risky stuff, right? So rook d4, queen f3. And you see the value of this bishop d6 move getting g3, and black is never giving white a chance to get anything going with the a pawn. He's immediately poking around at white with his active pieces. Forces the king out, check, check here, and now another sweet, sweet move. It seems like the white king is pretty safe here, but now he plays queen to b1. Now, in this position, you have to understand, he's still like in danger of getting back rank mated. He's still got these pieces here which are really bad tactically, right? The rook's undefended, the bishop's barely defended, the bishop can't move. Really stuff to be worried about. But we recognize that here he's generated a threat. His threat is queen b2, right? Like h4, check. So if king e1, there's checkmate, right? You don't want to run back that way. And if he blocks with the bishop, then bishop to b4, check, wins the queen because this rook can't capture, right? Or the king could come up, potentially, but then black has like a continuing attack with bishop e2 or queen e2, right? So it's messy, but this seemed like a big threat to us, queen b2. So, so white tries to answer it, queen to c3, covering this. And of course, as with every single move white plays, basically, again threatening a back rank disaster for black, right, with queen c8. So that seems great until Jayaram uncorks the last of the 4 candidates for move of the week, bishop b4. What? Okay, the rook can't take it. because it's pinned. The queen pretty much has to take it or she gets taken. So, you know, not much of a choice, right? Notice also that he's stopping queen c8 checkmate by this method as well. It's not like he could defend it really easily. Like if he'd played a move like h6 or g6 to get out of back rank mate, white would just play queen c8 here and take the rook and then clean up from there. Okay, so bishop b4. Sort of like the only defense is like another attack. So white takes it. And now queen b2 check. If bishop c2, then the same thing that we saw before where he loses the queen because of this. If king back, then checkmate, just like before. So the king has to come up to d3. And now we find out how bad the attack actually would be if the king gets marched. Whoops, if the king gets marched up the board. It's really, really devastating. So devastating that he could sack the piece for it because, oddly, after queen to b1, this king is just herded into an instant checkmate. You could block here or here, but black just takes it. Doesn't make a difference, right? Checkmate. So in this position here, Swiercz resigned. So I think that was like a really, really fantastic game on Jayaram's part. Grabbing that b2 pawn, like understanding he's going to lose back the pawn on c6, a7, whatever, and poking at the white king side in order to create some kind of grounds for a counterattack of activity. And then, of course, the tactical phase where they're both like in danger of getting back rank mated is pretty intricate and cool. And the finish with bishop b4, that's a pretty spectacular move. I mean, I would be super happy to play bishop b4 in a tournament game. I would remember it for my entire life if I played bishop b4 in a game where I had like 2 hours to think about my moves. If instead I have like 30 seconds in a speed game on the internet and I found that move, like I would have trouble believing that I'd found it. I would be like, did I really find that? Can I really do this? That was fantastic. And now we've got one last absolutely insane game for all of you. But that game there was really a decisive game for that match as well because, I mean, this is an upset by rating. You know, he's 2,500 playing against like 2,650. And Swiercz has the white pieces. So this is like one of those games that if you're just sort of handicapping the match, you would kind of expect to be a point for the archbishops, I would think. But yeah, the win by Jayaram gets like a huge point for Webster, and they eventually win the match 9-7. So you can imagine if somehow Swiercz had won the game, the match would have been 8-8. So I mean, this was part of like a fantastic all-around team performance by Webster in this match. I mean, they all played really, really well yesterday. This is the one match I predicted wrong. I predicted the archbishops to win it. And you can see how this level of great game by black might be a little bit hard to predict for someone just looking at the ratings. You would not necessarily think that Jayaram plays this well, but maybe people who know him know that he does. But I would guess that this was a standout moment for him too, and that he's pretty pleased as punch about the game. All right, let's get on to the next. Okay. Against Pert, but sorry, I need to really quickly check. Is this like Richard Pert? I know this is not Nick Pert. It's Richard Pert. I am right. All right, so this game comes to you from London versus London. The Towers versus the ones who lost. Hang on a second. Apologies. Central Division. The Towers versus the Lions. All right. So, aka the ones who lost, as they will now be known. All right, so the guy playing white here is an international master named Justin Tan. I believe that he's one of the world's best Crazy House players, if I'm not getting multiple Justin Tans confused. But there is an IM named Justin Tan who is arguably the best Crazy House player in the world, and this was probably him. So he is a great player in his own right. He kind of ends up accidentally in the sort of Crazy House style game here, insofar as there's promotions and pieces you wouldn't expect flying around this game. Okay, classical Steinitz variation here. In this position, last week, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave castled queenside against Thomas Rendell. That could have been the highlight. That could have been a highlight last week, as Rendell played c4, which gives black a very strong queenside attack. After, you know, something like f5, g5, b5, etc. This is actually pretty good for black, but Maxime played his way out of that one successfully. So Justin Tan knew his theory here. He trades on c5 first. If you're intending to castle queenside, that prevents black from playing c4 and then mauling you over there. So a6, b5, still going for queenside attack undaunted. That is the main plan for black here. Who's first? Who's first? All right, threatening b4 to win the pawn on a2. But now Justin strikes. He trades off the knight on c5, gaining control of the d3 square and taking the bishop off of g5, and goes for, what do they call this? The Greek gift, the classic, whatever. El classic, bishop, something or other. Checkmate on h7, basically. Okay, so this is like an instantly super strong attack for white, and you'd think that it means that white's attack is coming first at this point. Well, black can't defend queen h7, so the best he can do is create a path to run. It's got to be to this square so that the king can sort of dodge and bob around the rook and try and get to the other side of a piece to block him laterally. Check here. Yeah, here often you go queen h8, queen g7 with a strong attack, but Justin Tan plays an even much more precise move, h6. And it can't be taken because of queen f7, so the king moves here. And now he's played h6 for free instead of 2 moves with the queen. And he's threatening f7, and he doesn't even try and defend it. Yeah, I mean, I'm down with not even trying to defend that. I see that white's just playing h7, h8 either way. So he runs with the king. Yeah, he doesn't need knight f7. He goes h7, b4. Now, here perhaps is a mistake from Justin. I mean, I don't know exactly what should or shouldn't happen this game. It's obviously a crazy game. Oh, yeah. The first move I was going to suggest is not that big an improvement. I was thinking maybe like he should play knight b1 here. That's kind of like a normal type of move. The problem is that on bishop e3 check actually is kind of a thrashing, right? If you play knight d2, queen a2, and you've entombed your own king. And this is it. The tomb of the forgotten king. So I guess he'd have to play like rook d2, and maybe he can, you know, bail out himself while doing this thing. This is complicated. This might be better than what he did. It seems reasonable for him to try that. The other thing he could possibly try would be knight d5. Also interesting, with the idea of like connecting the rook here and making like threats against black's king, and then just like walking out with his king as well. I don't know. It seems like a candidate move. Also, maybe knight e4. Knight e4 with the idea that if like queen a2, you play knight c5, and if d takes, you know, maybe now you go for an attack here. And if they play bishop e3, you can get away. And if they take here first, threatening bishop e3, then you've got checkmate. So I'd say this would be probably like a critical move for calculation if we were like really studying this game. I think the lines with knight here, here, or here are all pretty interesting. Instead, he just is like, okay, I'll take another queen. Black takes on c3. What I find concerning about this for white is that by letting the black pawn get to c3, I feel like you're giving black an extra attacker. Now black's attacking with queen, bishop, knight, and pawn. Whereas as long as the pawn's on the 4th rank, it's not yet like really checkmating our king, right? But once the pawn's taking away squares from our king, it's like it's hard to allow this pawn to continue. Anyway, white runs away with their extra queen. And now it really looks and feels like the crazy house. Because there's 2 queens on the board, there's more legal moves than I can properly process here. I mean, it does make sense to also just throw your queen away here, just trying to see what damage you can do to this king. But I have no idea. I think once this pawn's here, white's in some serious danger. So he saves his extra queen. Knight to b4. This is really sweet way to attack. Often you leave the pawn on c3 and play knight b4. I've seen this a bunch of times in the French. The point is they can't play queen c3 because of knight a2 grabbing the queen. So yeah, so now he finally has to like take this because he's threatened with knight check and then back going for mate. So he takes it, and then this move was just crazy. You would be expecting here a move like queen a2 or knight a2 or something like that, or bishop e3, which is impossible now because of the queen. I think that's probably a big point of why queen h3 was a plausible defense. But knight takes c2. This is totally surprising, but it's really cool because the point is, if you consider any kind of position like this where you're trying to continue attacking, this pawn here is providing this kind of like lateral defense to the king from like an area that black sort of more dominates. So actually getting rid of the pawn on c2 opens up a lot of tactical ideas for black against white here. And one quick variation is that you can't take it because check, here, check, right? And finito, white's done. Filleted by bishops, and king here is also a known mate. So he can't take it, but okay, the knight's just capturing this random pawn, but this pawn's really crucial and opens up the white king. So now finally he takes on f7, brings up his rook, and now this knight here, amazing square, completely cutting off the king. And the threat here is queen c3, king b1, rook b8 mate. Not much to do about that threat. If the rook comes up, then presumably queen a2 would be good. Well, I haven't double checked this, so I don't really know. Maybe check and check is better. Yeah, I mean, this seems like easier to be sure of, that this is just crushing. King f3, I think, is the best square for the king here, and now this. So in this position, if you count material, black actually has a bishop pair and a rook against a queen, plus he's massacring this king. So black's just winning here. It's odd that black has so much material, right? So after knight e3, the only thing he came up with to stop queen c3 and queen a3 and bishop a3 was rook c2. And then, of course, he just takes it, and he still can't take it. And now black just has too much material, whether or not he checkmates white's king, which, of course, he does pretty quickly thereafter. And white finally gave up here, still with his extra queen, but soon he'll have no kings and two queens, or something like that. So that was another just mind-boggling, wild game. Probably not covered on stream because the London match was so decisively in favor of the towers, but super sweet game. So those are your 4 candidates for game of the week here. Flavio Perez, Flav upsetting Maxime Vachier-Lagrave with a rolling attack and perhaps not the most precise tactics, but still some sweet moves. And winning the match for Khan over Marseille, one of the most incredible results. Borisek versus Neiksans, both players playing really brilliantly, which I really like that. Some of you might feel that game is marred by it being a draw. But I actually love the level of defense that Donatello put up throughout that game. Then we've got Tan versus Pert, the insane game you just saw. With just mind-boggling violence by Pert happily letting his opponent wreck his king side and play with 2 queens. Not even deigning to play rook takes h8 when white queened, right? Just letting him queen and then take his queen back to his king side with him. And then we've got Swiercz versus Jayaram, which was the decisive game for Webster, winning against St. Louis, who I thought was like the favored number 2 team in the Pacific Division, and it was actually a really slick, high-level game by Jayaram with a mind-boggling tactic at the end, which made it into the consideration for move of the week as well. So there you have it. Those are some highlights from the week. Obviously, couldn't cover everything, but that's what I had on my radar so far. I'm sure there's other great games to discover if you take the time to play through everything. Or check out some of the other tidbits that people are tweeting. This is how I found a lot of the best games from the week is on Twitter. There's pretty much all the Pro Chess League teams. You can go to Pro Chess League on Twitter to find, because they're retweeting almost all this stuff, but like you can find like, you know, a video by Elliot Liu reflecting on a couple of his games, or you can find some hilarious live coverage by the Swashbucklers. I don't know if it was hilarious or not. They called themselves hilarious, of course. I would do the same if I were advertising myself, perhaps. But here you can find a lot of like the tidbits. You can follow the different teams or just follow Pro Chess League and see what gets retweeted by them. You can find a lot of like the greatest like brilliancies games, tactics, blunders, etc. from there.